Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Media in Focus segment. My name is Mark Ashton. For those who don't know me, my background is actually financial journalism. I'm a former editor at FinWeek and ran MoneyWeb for a couple of years before it was delisted. And one of my passion points has always been around the kind of topic and subject of journalism and media in South Africa. And I truly believe it is one of the most noble professions in the world. When I didn't know what to do, I became a journalist, and I really fell in love with it as a craft and something that we could go and really establish. And I think the media has taken enormous pressure over the last few years in terms of its models, in terms of the people who've had to kind of stand up and be the last line in terms of governance and the fight against corruption. And part of our Media in Focus segment is to really put kind of faces to the names that you see in print and online, etc. And to kickstart that, we've invited Neesa from Daily Maverick to join us. Neesa, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Absolute pleasure. And Neesa, maybe just before we start off, who are you and what are you doing these days?
So I'm currently straddling kind of two portfolios. I'm the personal finance editor at Daily Maverick, which means I'm in charge of the personal finance section and I write most of the content for it. And I'm also associate editor at Business Maverick. So I cover the financial services sector from a business point of view.
And maybe just taking us through your career. I mean, I look at financial journalists and business journalists, and they all go through very different channels in life. Some start out with a passion for shares, some start out with personal finance. Some just don't know what they want to do when they're grown up and end up moving into journalism. Take us through your career and how you got to where you are today.
So I can't say I fell into journalism. It was something I wanted to do for a very long time. It kind of started with, I'd like to be a writer, and then, how can I monetize that? So I studied journalism after school, and then I did a BTech journalism. I started out in community reporting, which was very interesting because it gave me a exposure to politics, to high school reporting, entertainment. It was everything, all a mishmash. It was very interesting. And from there, I decided, once I did my BTech, I decided that I had a passion for financial journalism. So I got into Business Report, which was part of the independent newspaper stable a long time ago. And from there, I leapfrogged across to another newspaper in the same stable, which was Personal Finance. And I got to work with Bruce Cameron for 6 years, which was amazing. And over the years, I've kind of sort of dabbled in both personal finance and business reporting. And I think each one has something to say for itself. So I'd say I'm in a great position now because I get to do both the things I love.
You mentioned Bruce Cameron. I mean, I think he was pretty much the doyen of personal finance reporting for a long time. In terms of role models in the industry, who really stands out for you? I mean, there's Bruce, but I mean, are there other people that have kind of shaped your career as you've gone along?
So Bruce was a big one, and I think he definitely has that role. You know, he saw the gap in the market for a personal finance section, and he really ran with it, and it's become entrenched. It's growing, but it hasn't grown enough. I think there's still not enough people covering personal finance. And I had the pleasure of working with him for 6 years, and I think I learned a lot from him, which is great. I also worked with Maya Fisher-French for several years, and she's also quite an inspiration. She's very passionate about the topic. And I think with personal finance, that is one of the keys to writing on this topic. You've got to be passionate about what you do because it's a lot of the same content and repackaging it and reaching out and making it more consumable and making it more interesting and approachable to different markets because, you know, you've written the story 5 years in a row, but next year somebody might read it and pick it up that hasn't read it before, and it's a whole new market that you're reaching.
I think it's such an important topic. I mean, I always find business and financial journalism in South Africa really interesting because, you'll often talk about financial scandals that involve, I don't know, Steinhoff, where it's hundreds of billions of rands, or it's a bank, or it's an asset manager, and the numbers are almost mind-blowing. You can't almost you almost packaging it and bringing it back to the man in the street and the ordinary person. But I think it's one of the things about personal finance is it really is a personal element. It could be, I'm 5 years from retirement, and do I have enough money? It comes down to your children, your home. Everybody's personal finances are a very unique setup. In terms of the stories that you work on, I asked you in the briefing document, what was was there one that stood out for you and really shaped or really got you excited? You said maybe there were a couple more. Maybe just take us through a couple of the stories that that have jumped out for you.
So there were quite a few. I think last year stands out for me in the sense that last year there were two different stories that I covered, and both of them were scams. The one was United African Stockfell, which I covered over about 2 month period, and I got to know a lot of the people who invested in the Stockfell because I managed to get added to a WhatsApp group with about 800 investors on there who had lost their money. And it was heartbreaking listening to the stories behind the scenes and hearing what was going on. And there was also a lot of intimidation that was going on. So as a financial journalist, that's not something I've really had to deal with much. That was interesting to see how people who can be completely heartless when it comes to making off with somebody else's money. And then there was another company called GS Partners, which was offering returns on crypto coins, and they've actually had warnings issued against them in several countries, jurisdictions from across the USA to Canada, to South Africa as well. And when I did eventually get hold of somebody who was representing the company and I asked him about it, he was very brusque and very dismissive and very defensive, I would say. So that was quite a tell. I'm still planning to cover more on GS Partners because earlier this year or towards the end of last year, their website mysteriously went down and none of the investors can get hold of them now. So, yeah.
Maybe last question then, just to wrap this up. I kicked this off saying I genuinely believe journalism is a very noble career. It may not necessarily be the best from a commercial perspective, but it plays a big part in the democracy that we see playing out today. Maybe kind of closing words of advice for people who are considering journalism as a career?
So I hate to say it, but if you want to make lots of money and become a millionaire, this is not the career for you. I think journalism is something you have to do if you really are passionate about the topic and about getting the word out there and writing. I think it's amazing to see what stories you can bring to light and then follow that up with how that impacts people that you will never meet, possibly people that you will never ever interact with personally, but it touches them on a very personal level. And I think that is the huge difference for me.
Excellent. Neesa, thanks so much for your time, and hopefully we will touch base again over the next couple of months.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Have a good one.